So just starting with the usual musical intro, just let people gather. Feel free to test the chat and make sure it works. Well, hello Jamie. No, we're not playing Toy Story 3. Hello Citron as well. Hello R9DNG. No, not Toy Story 3. Hello Kinky Monkey. This is going to be a desktop live stream, so there won't be any gameplay unfortunately. It's just looking over the patch notes. Although your requests of Hood and Belfast Stumpy are much appreciated, they won't be appearing, but thank you. And hello. More tier 1. Well, we'll see how it goes tomorrow. Hello Sid as well. Hello. So, yeah, 35 seconds to go. Hopefully the stream health is good. Hopefully you can hear me. You know what it's like. And everything seems okay. And that's it. So let's make a start. I know, let's just let that count down to 4. But yes, we're all good, and hopefully everyone's well. And here to the desktop. So as always, basically, down in the description there will be the redeem code, the link to the Redeemer, which is the code which is hidden within the patch notes if you haven't found it already. Furthermore, there is also the link to the patch notes, I believe. So if you want to read along at the same time, then you can do so by picking up the patch notes, or you can check out the patch notes at a later date. It gives you an idea where they are. So, as we are, we're going to be going into the 2 years strong April update as of Monday forthcoming. Now, this is going to be an English language stream. I guess that's quite obvious. So, yes, basically going into the patch on Monday, the April the 12th. Maintenance period is pretty much as per usual, 7 AM to 10 AM UTC. Allow people to adjust that for their own personal time zones wherever they are. Looking at the size of the update, it's interesting to see that we've got a mix of sizes. We've got 2.7 gig for the Xbox One, 2.5 gig for the Xbox Series, 2.8 gig for the PS4 and PS5. That's the one that's obviously going to be interesting to me, I guess you could say. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of a wrap up here. Basically, what's happening? Well, obviously, aircraft carriers. We have the 2 year strong update. We've got the 15-gun, 6-inch Mogami class cruiser as a campaign reward. We've also got Arena coming back, along with a couple of other things. So, obviously, it's interesting to see in which order they shout about which. So the first thing they shout about is obviously the 2 year strong. I think this is something that's quite important to World of Warships Legends, being that obviously to be at this point where the game is still going, I think is obviously an achievement that they're quite happy with. So during the first week of the patch, which is April the 12th to April the 19th, there's going to be some additional bonuses in regards to just simply playing the game. So there's going to be some additional gifts in store in regards to it being the first 2 years, but also you're looking at a first win bonus on the tier 3 to tier 7 aircraft carriers which are being introduced, along with it being on the tier 4 and up ships as well. Obviously it's a first win bonus. It's only going to be applicable to be claimed once per ship over that week. However, the rewards, obviously, we're not told exactly what the rewards are, but it can be anticipated that rewards could be anything from consumable booster flags, consumable camouflages, to promotion orders, and potentially even other rewards as well, like we've seen previously. Furthermore, there's also going to be a global XP conversion. Now, it's quite interesting that they're obviously releasing aircraft carriers as researchable, and in the first week of the patch, they're also having a increase in the amount that you can convert Elite XP to global XP. So basically, rather than being able to convert 25 Elite XP into 25 global XP via a single doubloon, I think it's going to be 35 to 35 for a single doubloon. So basically, you're still getting the same rate of conversion of Elite XP to global XP, but it's going to cost you less in being able to do that. In regards to everything else, there's going to be some one-time offers of reduction of 35% and 25% discount on numerous premium ships, which is going to be quite interesting. So obviously, aircraft carriers. It's quite a nice picture. We got the Lexington there as well, which is quite nice. But yes, I'm surprised. I would have thought this would have come a bit later in the year. I kind of anticipated we'd get another testing phase, but it looks like they were quite happy with it. So obviously, Japanese and American aircraft carriers are being released and researchable. They branch off from the tier 3 battleships. They are every other tier, so tier 3, tier 5, tier 7. As you can see, we're getting the Hosho and the Rugio as we had previously. We're getting the Langley and the Ranger as we had previously. And then also we've got the Lexington and the Shokaku, I think, coming in as the 2 tier 7s, which is quite interesting. Now, obviously, one thing they do say is that for the tier 7, it will require you an additional 50,000 experience points in order to completely unlock it. So rather than it being 100,000 as per the other ships, it's going to be 150,000. Basically, it's just because of the reduced number of ships, I guess you could say. Now, we already covered this in Wales Weekly, but the limitations on how carriers are going to be limited to 1 per team, and either carriers will be present or not present, so there won't be a situation where there's only 1 carrier per game, which is quite interesting. So that means it just keeps it more balanced, I guess you can say, and it depends how balanced the aircraft carriers are. Now, to unlock them, you have to obviously get them via the tier 3 battleship retrospectively. At what point you can transfer over, I don't know, and unfortunately I won't be able to know because I've already completed all the tech trees. But going off my memory, it's like sometimes it's like halfway through or something, you can then, it unlocks the other part of the tech tree. So if you haven't already done American or Japanese battleships, then you might have to get partway through the tier 3 battleship in order to then start unlocking the carriers. As it states, all carriers will continue to have access to torpedoes and dive bombers, which I agree with. I'm basically not expecting rockets anytime soon, which is good. Not expecting AP rockets or AP bombs. Again, I think it kind of, there's a line in this which almost, it shows their intention when it comes to aircraft carriers. They definitely want to try and take a different direction with aircraft carriers in Legends compared to the way that they've done aircraft carriers in PC, which I guess can only be a good thing when you consider how much of a cancer aircraft carriers are considered in World of Warships PC. So the changes that they've made to the carriers since the airstrike mode is obviously they've improved the HE bomb damage. Yeah, I can kind of agree with that. The way the HE bombs, they kind of felt like it was difficult to hit at times, and then if you did hit, sometimes the damage just didn't feel like it was worth the effort, I guess you could say. The torpedoes were definitely the star of the show, and they've increased the damage and range of the torpedoes. So I guess it's rewarding you more for getting a hit and improving your chances of getting a hit, I guess you could say. But really, the range of the torpedoes didn't really matter for myself, because I was pretty much dropping them at point blank to try and minimize the opportunity of the enemy ships in order to maneuver. Now, they made changes to the aircraft. Tier 3 aircrafts have had their speed increased. Fair enough, they were quite slow. Tier 5 aircraft had their HP increased. That is probably potentially because of the other changes they've made, especially to AA. Tier 3 HE bombers have improved drop accuracy. Fair enough, because that kind of felt a bit all over the shop, especially compared to, say, the Tier 5s, and the way that with the Tier 5 aircraft, the reticle actually did decrease in size as you continued the dive. Carriers have received a plotting. Now, this was quite interesting, and I'll just bring it up. This I quite liked. It was you pinged the map, and it automatically drew the route which the ship was going to take. So you knew where you were going and how you were going to get there. Now, I guess if you wanted to change your course a bit more, if you thought, okay, that route that I've chosen is a bit risky because it goes to the south of the islands towards Charlie, then maybe you'd ping a square a bit further to the west in order to try and negotiate your carrier further north. It looks quite interesting, and I look forward to testing it. The way you ping the square, basically the center of the square is the target, but the route to that target is, I guess it's the shortest route. The route of least resistance, I guess you could say, in regards to how it gets there via going around islands and stuff. So obviously you just have to take into account if you're going to use it. I still suspect we're going to see a lot of players who play carriers just click at the back of the map and just reverse up or something like that. I think this kind of ping in the map where you're going to go is probably going to be for those slightly more experienced players who want to keep up with their team. I mean, in the instance of this where they're showing ping in the top right corner and it draws it, that's very nice. But in reality, I think if you were actually playing this game, you'd probably want to ping probably 2 squares south and 1 square west of the carrier initially, just to try and bring your carrier in behind your team, which appears to be capturing the Alpha and Bravo objective. At least that's how I would use it. But it's interesting to see. It's quite obvious that what they're showing us here is in a versus AI game, because there's just smoke screens everywhere from the AI just dumping smokes. So obviously it doesn't give a true representation of how it would interact with a standard mode. But having carriers introduced to standard is going to be quite interesting to see how that all plays out. Right, jumping back to the patch notes. Now, one of the things they have done is, if you remember back when we had the test phase, it was a bit annoying that when it came to inspirations that affected torpedoes actually didn't do anything. That has now changed. So commander skills, or inspiration skills, which do affect torpedoes, whether that's torpedo speed, torpedo range, torpedo detection, that has now changed. They will now be taking effect. Furthermore, Louis de Funès' base trait, which his base trait affects the amount of HE damage caused by destroyers, cruisers, and battleships HE. It looks like they're going to be adding an additional line there in which it will also affect HE bombs from aircraft carriers. Looking at this basically means that you could be looking at an additional plus 4% damage from your HE bombs, which is fair enough, I guess you can say. That's maximum. Obviously, that's going on the assumption it's going to be equal to the amount of additional HE damage that's already granted to destroyers, cruisers, and battleships by his space trait. Changes to the other ships, which is basically pretty much everyone who's going to be attacked by aircraft. Tier 5 and up cruisers will be receiving 2 charges of defensive AA consumable, which basically replaces the consumable which is in their second slot. For most cases, this is going to be sonar. In some cases, it could be smoke screens. We're looking at you, Italy. So whether those choices are worthwhile is going to be very interesting, I have to confess. Now, what does it really grant you? Let's hope that this works. It does. Yes. or did it? I don't know. Yes, it basically improves average AA damage by 200% for 40 seconds, has 143-second reload. In this case, it's showing they've got 3. I can only assume that they've got a fully packed commander, I guess you could say. And thanks to that messing up, there we go, okay. So that's an interesting consumable. Which cruisers you might want to put that on? You kind of got to think, like, what cruisers do you kind of not rely on sonar so much? I don't. It's going to be some interesting choices. I do look forward to experimenting and putting that on the Atlanta, I have to confess. And stream health is still good. Good. Right. So, obviously they have the additional commander trait which is being introduced. In this case, they're showing it on Jericho, but it can be expected that it's going to be taking a position in the first available slot on all commanders. This skill is all-out AA anti-aircraft skill, basically, which passively boosts the range and power of your AA defenses. Going off of what's represented here in front of us on Jericho, and what that therefore could then potentially change to, it looks like you could be getting a plus 12% average AA damage per second if you have that completely maxed out, and a plus 5% AA range. Obviously, that's assuming that what we're seeing here is a linear distribution, and therefore that's what the end goal is. However, you never know, it could be an exponential or slightly curved increase with each one. Hello, Bats, and hello, Samuel, as well. Yep, I think that's all today. So that's an interesting skill. It's a shame it's just one skill, but I guess, I guess if you have a commander, you could take that skill, and if we remember what the base traits or the base skills of the aircraft carrier commanders were, both of those were in regards to anti-aircraft capability. So it looks like you could spec a ship towards anti-aircraft. However, with it only being one skill on your commander plus 2 inspirations, and potentially up to 2 modules, obviously we'll cover that. It's going to be interesting. I do look forward to maybe experimenting with an anti-aircraft build on something a bit vicious like an Atlanta or a Flint or something maybe. Obviously, we see that they've added some universal skills for carriers to the universal commanders of the Japanese and American nations. That's Togo and Dewey. Basically, hidden threat, which basically improves the aircraft torpedoes, concealment and speed, and burn baby burn, which is increasing the chances of causing fire with the HE bombs. As they say, and as I potentially alluded to, every tier 4 and higher ship is getting the AA Module 1. That basically improves your AA gun's firing range by 20%. Furthermore, the tier 7 ships and up will be getting a additional option for their 4th tier, which is AA gun module 3. And as yet, I haven't seen this teased anywhere. I didn't see it in the trailer, and I can't see it in the patch notes. So what exactly AA gun module 3 is going to actually do, I don't know, but I can only assume that it's probably going to increase your AA gun range further, and maybe also increase the amount of damage that your AA does as well. Hood AA aircraft build, anti-aircraft build, hood anti-aircraft build. The thing is, you'd be sacrificing too much from that speed build. I do like that. Pixel, the American Amir, is desiring an option to use the main battery on the Atlanta as AA. Well, you won't necessarily have to, because your main battery will already be accounted for within your AA stats, and that's what's going to be thrown up the flat clouds. So actually, you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. You're able to use your main battery against ships, while at the same time your main battery could be also firing at aircraft due to the way the mechanics work. Obviously, it just means that you don't get manual AA. I would have very much liked manual AA, being able to actually train your guns up if they are dual purpose guns, and actually use the player to interact with the aircraft rather than it being behind the scenes mechanics. However, we haven't seen them introduce that on PC, and I don't expect them to introduce it any time or at all. But yeah, and hello Pixel as well, and hello Melissa. Hope we get HMS Dido. Wow, if we ever do, it'd be HMS Sirius. She's available on World Warships Blitz, and yes, I very much agree. I would love to see some Dido class cruisers in the in World Warships Legends, especially. Well, that's basically wrapping up the aircraft carriers and the other changes. So we go on to the line breaker, oh no, sorry, limit breaker campaign, in which they're basically, we've all seen it, I guess you could say, the 15 6-inch gun Mogami version, basically the Japanese attempt at circumnavigating the limitations on the number of heavy cruisers that they were allowed to build. Amusingly, by building the Mogami class, that's what then caused the Americans to build the Helena class in order to react, I guess you could say, which is quite amusing. So without the Mogami class, we wouldn't have the Helena class, I guess you could say. But it's going to be interesting to see. They're already hinting that she's going to be a very capable high explosive slinger, which is fair enough when you consider that she's going to have Japanese HE, and especially say you have the Azure Lane Targo commander. That's going to be really horrible if you use the arsonist trait. So yeah, that's going to be quite vicious. Now, in regards to the campaign, we're seeing a repeat of some of the things that they've done previously. So the weekly Havoc missions start every week, but they're available for the entire updates. Therefore, you don't necessarily have to complete them weekly. You can, say, complete the first week's one over the duration of the campaign. It's only really the last week's one, which is only available for the last week, will it then mean that you need to try and push it for that time limit. Now, they're also giving us the option to use legendary ships, but as always, it's going to be the either or mechanic. So it's either do it in, for example, tier 4 to tier 7, or in a legendary ship, and therefore it's strange that they still keep doing this. Why split it? It just seems like legendary tier just still doesn't feel like it's completely integrated, I guess you could say. There's also going to be hard mode missions to earn medals for those who wish to get more of a challenge and finish the campaign earlier. Fair enough. So we're seeing the return of quite a few different things here. It's going to be interesting to see how they stabilize their choice in regards to Havoc missions and how they allow us to complete campaigns. Although, personally, I feel like they kind of change it depending on what the end reward is. Obviously, thankfully, empty backings remain at 2,500 doubloons, but how, as per always, the end reward, the ship, is locked behind the empty backing. Now, going into the breakdown, obviously, without empty backing, I think let's just skip to the more important stuff. 12 promotional orders, 1 insignia, 1 universal accommodation. That's probably all that most people will care about. Obviously, the other stuff is nice. The total amount of the rewards without amity backing is 28,667. If you purchase amity backing, the additional rewards that you're getting, let's skip to the important stuff. 28 promotional orders, 3 insignias, 3 universal accommodations, 750 doubloons, and obviously the cruiser. The total value of the rewards with the amity backing is 69,420 doubloons. The difference between having the campaign, well, completing the campaign without amity backing and with amity backing is a total of 40,753 doubloons, which is actually quite substantial in comparison to previous campaigns. In fact, without amity backing, you will be receiving 41.3% of the total rewards, which is quite interesting. That's the largest share of the rewards without amity backing that I've seen since I've been recording this. And I've been recording this since October 2019, basically as long as we've had information. So it's quite interesting to see. Pixel, it would be interesting to see if there was an option to swap out Sirius's main battery with 113 meters, like they did with the Scylla and Chilibis. Yeah, with the Didos, I'd like to see Black Prince. In all honesty, there's quite a nice variety to the Dido class that you could almost make about 3 different premium ships, and you could probably fit them in, say like one as a tier 6, and then one as and two as tier 5s or something like that. There's a lot of variety in that class, which I do like. I won't go into depth. The book is looking at me, which I do have on my side in regards to British cruisers of World War Two. Vaz. They're so scared that legendary tier games will allow people to complete the weekly Havoc earlier and make people think twice about boosting the campaign. Maybe. But it just seems odd that they give us the option to complete it between tier 4 and tier 7, and it doesn't really make much of a difference. But yet, when it comes to legendary tier, they need to add this kind of, it moves the goalposts. Which then, if you're moving the goalposts, what does that mean about legendary tier? Is it implied that legendary tier is overpowered, or overcompensated, or something like that? It just seems a little bit strange that you need to separate it. I mean, if they separated it as like tier 7 and legendary, or tier 6 and below, then you could probably go, okay, that makes maybe a bit more sense. You're separating the credit earning tiers from the what's seen as maybe the more hard mode tiers, or the harder to earn credits tiers. Not saying that you can't earn credits, but it could be potentially harder for most players. But to have that cut off at the new tier we introduced very recently, and we only have a limited selection of ships, just seems a bit odd. Maybe it is just because there is that limited selection of ships at the moment. We don't actually have a legendary tier cruiser. You've got what we got. We've got 3 destroyers, 3 battleships, and a battle cruiser. So as yet, we don't actually have any form of cruiser at legendary tier. So maybe that's why. Arena battles season 2 and 3 are coming. Starting on April the 19th and May the 3rd, respectively. Doesn't say how long they go for. They're going to be a week long. Okay, so April 19th for a week, May the 3rd for a week, season 2, season 3. Now, it doesn't say it here. It's very interesting that the amount of information available in the patch notes differs from the information that's available within the trailer. So, in regards to the trailer, this obviously showcases what the rewards will be for your position of completing. I'm going to assume that the rewards in regards to completing Arena are cumulative as per previously, and that I believe is correct based on the trailer. But also in the trailer, these seasons of Arena are going to be tier 3 destroyers and cruisers only, which I found very interesting. And your position on the end table is going to be based on the number of kills. So again, you're looking to have a ship with good durability and good damage potential at tier 3, and it has to be a cruiser or a destroyer, which I think is quite interesting. It's nice to see there's quite a lot of doubloons available for Arena, so I guess if you finish in, say, the top 1% of Arena in both weeks, you can basically pay for your empty backing quite nicely, and then you get the 750 doubloons back. As they've said previously, what they're trying to do is move the doubloon rewards away from the campaign and more towards other things. And so through 2 seasons of Arena, you're looking at 3,000 doubloons, whereas the campaign's only going to grant you 750 doubloons. Hello, Brandon. That's the difference in doubloon value without the backing is very rigged. They actually given out fewer promotion orders, but many more boosters, which aren't worth much in your honest opinion. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, yeah, you're looking at. Yeah, you're looking at about 48 camouflages, aren't you? So yeah, they seem to be dishing out a lot of camouflages. I wonder if that's just to try and keep people happy with the amount of paint they get. In fact, they've changed the arena mode to toxic. It's tier 3, and yes, there will be a lot of kill stealing, but we get a lot of kill stealing anyway already, to be honest. Jumping into Golden Week, I think. So I'll jump back to the desktop stream. So, Golden Week, as I previously mentioned, it's obviously a number of Japanese holidays which accumulate within a single week. Therefore, in order to celebrate this, they're doing some themed skins for the Congo, the Shasho, and the Yamato. The Shasho is also going to be available for 12,500 doubloons. This week will start on April the 19th, I think. And there's also a gold flag if you so wish to have a gold flag. That's 1,000 doubloons for a flag. Be my guest. Now the camouflages actually do look quite nice. Obviously, we're seeing the Ashashio. I do like the black and red. The one on the Congo does actually look quite nice in the trailer. Golden Week sales begin on April the 26th. Are they going to reveal what the Golden Week chests drop rates are going to be on April the 19th? Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, if this interests you, then fair enough. Probably not something that interests me, in all honesty, I'm going to have to confess. Balance changes. Obviously here we do have the anticipated buff to the German secondaries, so 105mm secondaries have been increased to 1/5 penetration, which means they can now penetrate 20mm of armor, which means at close ranges they will be more effective against destroyers and superstructures of battleships and cruisers. Fair enough, okay. I'm just trying to think, as a destroyer, normally I'm not getting that close to secondary build battleships because the amount of obviously the closer you are to a secondary build battleship, the more accurate it is. So I guess it will help if you enjoy those kind of builds. Now, this is a very minor change. The Shizuka's had her reload reduced by a single second. My only thought there is they're trying to... I can't remember if she comes with an aircraft. Maybe they're trying to make it a bit more worthwhile to take, say, the spotter aircraft. If you could reduce that reload a little bit more, maybe that's what it is. I mean, it will change your DPM over the course of the entire game, but in like that per volley, you're still waiting around quite a while. Warhammer ships, Ragnarok and Ingur's Pagato, knockoff Nagatos, they're receiving a buff. Basically, their Citadel armor has been increased by 50mm from 76mm to 126mm, therefore making their Citadels a bit less exposed. The repair party now heals and a further 32% more HP per second, so you almost got like a mini super heal, I guess you could say. And then they're also getting a single main battery reload booster charge, which will be taking the third slot. It almost feels like they've vanguarded them, is the best way to put it. They've given them very similar changes that they've done to Vanguard. Obviously, Vanguard never got the armor change. Vanguard had her Citadel dropped, but yeah, I always feel like they vanguarded the Warhammer ships. As they also mentioned, the concealment modification, it's going on to a lot of Japanese ships, Shizuka, Nagato, Imagi, Yamato, Ki, then the 2 knockoff Nagatos as well, and we're also seeing it on the Vanguard, which is interesting. Brandon, the main battery reload will be interesting. It's interesting, but my issue with giving the main battery reload boost to ships which have turrets forward and aft is that sometimes it can cause a player to see an opportunity and go broad in order to use their guns and to use the reload booster in order to maximize the punishment they're doing to an enemy ship. However, in doing so, they're exposing their ship broad for a lot longer than they normally would if they were just kiting. So yes, it does mean that you have the ability to really throw some shells down range when you need to, but also you need to be wary of when you're doing it, because when you do it, if you're trying to maximize your number of guns on target to maximize your use of your main battery reload booster, you could be sticking yourself broader to a target which you're, say, in a duel with, or is paying attention to you, which is obviously then could be a detriment to your ship. So it's interesting, and only having one of them kind of means it's one and done. If you mess it up, it's gone. I mean, I'm always in two minds with that. It's like with the Vanguard and the reload boost and the Vanguard, I'm still in two minds on it. Division mates in tier 6 and 7 ship battles will now spawn closer to each other. God knows what that means. What? Like, does it mean that if, say, you took all the same ship class, you'd actually maybe spawn a bit closer together rather than being split among different spawns? Or does it mean that I don't know, you already feel quite clustered when you spawn in these games, so I'm not exactly sure what they want out of that one. Vaz, no, you can be happier when I request the Warhammer ships during your streams. That is very true, Vaz. That is very true. And hello, Axe. Hello. The new light cruiser Mogami version. Yes, she does look. I think she will be quite a strong ship, especially if you have the correct commander traits. She's going to be a very strong flamethrower, in all honest opinion. As listen about miscellaneous changes and improvements. Obviously, this is in bold, so basically, if you haven't already, make a start on the Red, White and Blue and Legendary Birthday Bureau projects. They've both been kicking around for a year. So if you haven't started them, please start them, because if you haven't started them at least by April the 12th, these will be removed, and they're not going to be available for new players either. So if you're interested in the California or just simply some of the rewards along the way, seriously consider it. Now, this is an interesting one. The two new maps being introduced. We have the Solomon Islands for the tier 3 and 4 games. This looks like an absolute laugh, because you have these. It's almost like two brothers, but rather than the islands being quite long, quite long with lots of space on either side, like vertically, the island's almost like quite long horizontally, and therefore limiting the vertical maneuvering through the map. I'm assuming it's going to be spawns north and south as per the PC, and that does mean that this kind of like center area is going to be turned into like some kind of like really horrendous battlefield area. The area to the west with this very tight gap to the edge of the map, that's going to be quite a tight fighting area. This area to the north looks like it could be quite. Looks like there's some there's definitely some choke points in this map, and trying to control those choke points is going to be quite interesting. I mean, you can control these choke points from either side. From here, this island is probably going to help you control these choke points, but you've got to be wary of this kind of viewing angle through the center of the map. Looks like it could be quite fun. Also, hotspot for tier 6 and 7 and legendary. Now, there's the code. It is in the description. So, down in the description is a link to the redeemer and the code. So you can just do Control-C, Control-V, and that should obviously help. Greetings, HMS Dragon. Good to see you. Good to see you. Alex, the thing that most excited is the rudder 5.6 rudder shift. You can get it down to 1.4. Oh, that does sound very good. That would be double steering gears plus steer clear, probably plus full speed ahead and Desert Lane Baltimore, I would assume. That's the only single thing I like about this update is the two new maps. I don't even care if they're good. I'm intrigued with aircraft carriers. The 6-inch Mogami does interest me, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how the game develops. Cautiously optimistic, I should say. The new maps I do look forward to. I just hope that they don't stick hotspot on like maximum rotation like they did with Tears of the Desert and Sleeping Giant, because those maps got old very quickly when you ended up playing the same map 4 times in a row. It was only the other day when I was watching Salty Sax do one of his live streams, and he had Tears of the Desert about 5 times in a row. and that was. It's just you shouldn't be getting the same map over and over again unless there really are that limited number of maps. But there aren't. We know there's loads of maps, so why you end up in situations where you end up with the same map over and over again? It just shouldn't be happening, and is my honest opinion. Here's Dragon. Please tell me carriers are permanently in the game now. Yes. They are. As you can see, carriers have been added to the port filter and point distribution count in the tactical map menu. Carrier-specific tooltips have been added to the control preset. Anti-aircraft stats have been added to the ship loadout UI. Maximum air defense range is now shown in the information panel when you open up the options menu or the pause menu, I guess you could say, when you're playing. Carrier commanders Yamaguchi and Ernest King are now available. It's interesting to see that we're only getting one commander per nation. Whether this gets expanded in the future to having 2 commanders per nation is yet to see. But then again, you have to remember that they're introducing, if you think about the other tech trees / nations, usually you're looking at, say, 2, let's take cruisers. For cruisers, you've got 2 cruiser Pacific commanders and a universal commander for 7 ships. For destroyers, you've got 2 destroyer commanders and a universal commander for 6 destroyers. And then for battleships, you've got 2 Pacific commanders and a universal commander for 5 battleships. There's only 3 carriers, and so whether that can justify having 2 commanders as well, or whether they're just going to leave it as 1 commander and 1 universal commander. Obviously, it does mean there's room for expansion in the future, but it's interesting to see that they've only launched with 1. Now, these will be available in the national commanders containers as well as the international ones, which does raise the very big question: what's going to happen with the weekly boost when the patch drops? Up until this patch, so every patch prior to this patch, the weekly boost reset after the patch dropped, which meant that you could complete the weekly boost, get all those promotion orders and that commander crate on the Sunday, then the patch was dropped, and then on Monday you would have the weekly boost completely reset, and you could play it all again and get those promotion orders and that commander crate all over again. However, this patch, that was not the case. Whether it's because this patch dropped on a Tuesday, or whether it's because Wargaming has conned onto it and now closed that loophole. But the big question is, if it doesn't reset, you're probably better off not completing the weekly boost until after the patch, because of the universal commander crate. For example, if you have all the commanders, I'm sure there's some of you out there which are in a very similar situation to myself, you've already collected all the commanders. That means any international commander crate which you receive and open after the patch will grant you one of the aircraft carrier commanders. However, if you open or receive, so this includes if you receive it before the patch drops, it will not contain the aircraft carrier commander if you open it after the patch. So that's my query, and I don't know which way it's going to go, and therefore I don't know how to advise you guys. I can only say you got 2 options here. You could chance your arm and complete it beforehand, and you might be able to double your promotion orders, or you might not, and you might potentially miss out on getting a aircraft carrier commander in the first week. I don't know which way to play it. However, that's me laying it out. I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions in regards to whether or not you want to complete the weekly boost before and chance your arm at doubling it, or complete it after and guarantee yourself a new commander. Backgrounds of the legendary skills have been replaced in the commander interface. Okay, fair enough. Of an active legendary commander. Okay, so that'll be something we'll have to see on Monday. Visual effects of projectiles hitting the ground has been improved. Yay. Why? Hello, Let's Crescent as well. Hello. Yes, new maps. Fixed bugs. Um, they changed made the aircraft look like bats on the Charlemagne scarab skin. I mean, there are some here. Enemy ship HP bars sometimes doubled up in the battle interface. Okay, fair enough. Global XP rounding the wrong way. Okay. Apart from that, rare case of control presets not changing, if that does affect you. Yeah, there's some bug fixes there, but there's nothing super exciting, I guess you could say. Alex, I'm not going to be playing aircraft carriers. Well, that makes your decision very easy. That means you can just complete the weekly boost before Monday, and then chance your arm at getting it doubled up and doubling your promotion orders, I guess. If you're not interested in carriers or the current carrier commanders, then obviously it just makes sense just try and get the weekly boost done first, and then you can chance your arm at potentially having it doubled. New premium ships. So let's start off with the October Revolution, I guess you could say. Now, she is basically a ganger, is the best way to put it, in all honesty. She has access to the Russian-style damage control party, more than likely. So this information is based off the PC version of the game, and obviously is subject to change. So that obviously means that she has these quick reloading but limited use damage control parties. Her armor scheme, prodding ball maker, quite resistant to high explosive shells and small caliber AP shells, especially when angled. Now, potentially she might have a very good AA complement, which is going to be quite interesting. She's going to be quite fast as well, probably about 23 knots. Her main battery guns will probably be quite accurate as well for her tier. She will be resistant to damage over time due to her unique damage control consumable potentially, as long as there's charges left, I guess you could say. She's got a 12-inch main battery, and her AP shells should be quite devastating against cruisers. Yeah, she basically seems like a down-tiered Gangut is the best way to put it. She might have better range than her tech tree counterpart, which would be the Pytoveliki. However, downsides will probably be she might have a low HP pool in comparison, so she might not be able to receive a lot of HP from her repair parties, or might have a more limited number of repair parties. Her guns might feel a bit lackluster against higher tier ships. Her shells may have a very oddly high fire trajectory, which could make leading targets a little bit more difficult than usual. The armor is probably not going to be very sufficient if you're completely broadside on, and it probably should be noted that the Citadel will be quite exposed and above waterline. Obviously, having that limited number of damage control parties does mean that you could potentially run out. Obviously, there are commander skills in World Warships Legends which will allow you to increase that. Her secondary armament may be a little bit lackluster in all honesty. But yeah, that seems to be the pros and cons of what I'm just going to simply call the October Revolution, because there's no point me trying to mess that name up. Going on to the Italian destroyer, and there's a nice little picture of her. What's her pros? Well, she's got 8 main battery guns. Let's see, what are these? These are going to be 120mm guns, which is going to be quite interesting. There's going to be 4 pairs of those, which will give her quite a high gun count for her tier. Now, they should have potentially she might have quite high firing arcs, which means that she could be quite effective at firing from behind islands. Probably a good torpedo speed, good torpedo reload speed, I should say. And the torpedoes probably have quite a long range and low detectability, probably very similar to the Italian cruisers. Smoke generator. On PC, she's got a smoke generator which is probably on par with the United States destroyers. However, this is World Warships Legends. This is subject to change. Downsides, small hit pool, very large target. She's almost like a baby cruiser, I guess you could say. Now, she might also have a very poor fire rate on her main battery as well. Because of those high firing arcs, it could be a bit more difficult to lead targets at range. Potentially a slow turret traverse speed as well. Also, might have poor gun firing arcs as well. It's worth noting that she's only got one turret forward, one turret aft, and then two turrets amidship. So she's got like APQY turrets rather than ABXY turrets. Now the torpedoes, as expected, they're going to be quite slow and low damage as well. So she's almost seems to be an alternative delivery system for Italian cruiser torpedoes. And looks like she doesn't have much AA at all, really. And she might even have slightly less number of charges for smoke generator. So on PC, she comes with 3 instead of 2. Well, with 3, whereas for most ships in Legends, they come with 2. So whether she will retain keeping 2 smoke screens or whether she only have 1 smoke screen is going to be quite interesting. And she might be quite slow as well, potential top speed of 34 knots. So yeah, that's some interesting thoughts there. And jumping back to the chat, while I jump back to the desktop. There we go. Where am I? Vans, I missed the beginning of the stream where you went over the CV buffs. I'll go back and watch it, but I'm not happy about it at all for many reasons. There's also the Nikolai, so why do they need this at tier 4? Because of Russian bias, that's Russian bias. Let Crescent, are there the hitboxes and ships changed like when they get stuck in an island? Wait, are there the hitbox on ships changed like when you get stuck in an island? Not quite sure. Alex, do you mean a worse Ismail, not Ganga? Let's see. Oh yeah, no, yeah. She's a Gangat class, so I guess she's Gangat's tier 3. I do apologise. Yeah, sorry. So she'd be a slightly better Gangat, I guess you could say instead. Vaz, the DD is very interesting. No mention of a DD commander though. That's true. That is very true. So potentially we could be looking at an Italian DD commander. There has to be, yeah. And that also means that it only be granted with the ship, very much like the way they've done the destroyer commanders on the pan-European destroyers, and also the way they did like French cruiser commanders in the past and stuff. Stumpy, what do you think will be the best Royal Navy ship per class for anti-aircraft? Cheshire has a very good anti-aircraft complement. Duke of York has a very good anti-aircraft complement. In regards to destroyers, British destroyers are not going to be very good when it comes to AA. The reason being is they're usually only carrying about 4 20mm Oerlikon, 1 quad 40mm pom-pom, and if you're lucky, they might. If you're lucky, I'm basically talking about, say, the Orkan and the Cossack. They will carry some dual-purpose secondaries. I mean, the Lightning potentially is going to be quite interesting because she does have those. Lightning does have those proper dual-purpose turrets, so that means that she will be able to chuck up flat clouds. But Royal Navy destroyers probably not the best anti-aircraft capable destroyers. They're probably going to be looking at more using their smoke to disengage from aircraft carriers and their detectability, rather than actually their AA complement to almost to resist. Cossack probably is all right. I wouldn't say it's amazing, in honesty. Shouting George, with the arrival of carriers and planes spotting, I think agility is going to become far more important than concealment. Yeah, could be right there, but also smoke. I mean, say like Reginald Tywit on the British destroyers might become a bit more interesting because of that ability to have those 2 additional smoke screens. So if you get hounded by an aircraft carrier, you can pop a smoke and hide. But also it means that destroyers are going to have to take into a bit more consideration when they play who's around them. Obviously, if you're a destroyer and you can stay within proximity of a very decent anti-aircraft cruiser, then that's going to be quite helpful. It probably means that wanting to run off on your own as a destroyer is probably not going to be the greatest thing. Yes, so will guns on things like the Atlanta be able to shoot down aircraft? I'm a little less caught up. So the way the guns on the Atlanta will work is, will they be able to shoot at aircraft? Yes. Will you be able to take control of those guns and point them at aircraft and shoot them? No. So with the Atlanta, you'll still be able to use the main battery against surface vessels. However, within the AA stats, there will be something called flak, which will be assigned to your main battery, and those will then fire up. Basically, there'll be a assigned number of flak counts being fired at the aircraft coming in. Les Crescent, I meant AA and Cossack. Well, the AA and Cossack, she's got a single quad 40mm pom-pom. She's got a couple of 20mm Oerlikon, and she's obviously got that dual purpose. Is it a 4-inch gun? But the main battery on the Cossack isn't dual purpose. Those 4.7-inch guns aren't dual purpose. So that means that in comparison to, say, some of the other potential ships, she's not great. She's obviously going to be better than the Jervis, if you want to put it that way. She will be better than the Jervis in regards to AA potentiality. Baz, yes, George, good point. Will mean a little less now. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's interesting, George actually bringing up the concealment. What he's mentioned in regards to concealment, because it's worth noting that concealment traits are only affecting your detectability by sea and not your detectability by air. So that's an interesting one. Well, feel free to shout questions, or if you want to just discuss a certain section. And as I probably left it too late, but if I can encourage you to give the stream a thumbs up, that would be much obliged. But yeah, I'll stick around for a little bit, see if there's any more questions. If not, I'll probably then start moving on to closing the stream up and letting you chaps disappear, and then I can probably boot up the console and see how things go. Pixel, it'd be interesting to see how the prospect of torpedoes coming from anywhere plays into cruisers firing inside smoke. A bit unfortunate, it does not. Pardon me, sorry. If it does happen, though, just unlocked a Fiji a day or two ago. Obviously, they're not going to know your exact position in the smoke. And I think in things in, like, say, the Fiji and the Exeter and the Leander, you should still be all right, because your maneuverability within your smoke and the size of your smoke screen is actually quite large. I think it's for just maximising your... Maximising the size of your smoke screen is obviously going to be quite a big trait. Furthermore, just making sure you've got decent maneuverability inside your smoke screen. One of my tricks when I do play smoke screen cruisers is I do like to ensure that I keep my rudder on, I keep my ship on the move, whether I'm going backwards or quarter speed forwards, and then that way that means the rudder is always able to do something. So should aircraft start coming at me from a particular angle, it does mean that I can then use the rudder to maneuver in order to avoid those incoming torpedoes. Now also, I mean, it's a very risky play, but for things like the Leander and the Fiji, and the Edinburgh, I guess you could say, you will be able to potentially swap sonar out for improved anti-aircraft capability. Now, it's a risky play because obviously when you're in a smokescreen, you are already a torpedo magnet and you're going to want to have sonar. However, if there is this situation where a lot of carriers are chancing their... it appears that potentially my internet did drop out for a second. Yeah. Well. Well, it appears maybe I'm back. Yes. Anyway, I think I've covered that. Sniper patch. Measure you recommend tactics to counter carriers. I think I'm going to have to test before I pass anything on. Obviously, it's going to be a different environment with the introduction of carriers. But best thing to counter CVs will be to ignore them. They will be mostly there as part of potato class. A few people will be able to make them into something to be concerned about. Well, I did want to try and find it within the patch. I think that this part is probably quite a strong part here. It kind of, this basically shows what they want to do with carriers within World Warships Legends. Basically, yes, they're going to be more influential, fair enough, but what they're really trying to do is focusing on that spotting potential. They're trying to make aircraft carriers a support role rather than a attack role. Hence why we don't have attack rockets and things like that. Now, if they can try and do that, if they can try and make carriers more of a support class, I suspect a lot of players probably aren't going to find that exciting. Most players like to deal out great big damage numbers. There's not many players who enjoy simply spotting. An example of people who do enjoy spotting, I guess we can, like Sax plays destroyers quite a lot, and what he likes to do is simply spot. He quite often can come top of the team with only doing 10,000 damage because as a destroyer he focuses on spotting rather than going for great big damage numbers. I sometimes do the same. Potentially carriers might not be for people who are looking to look after themselves, like you say. Is those who are looking to look after their team. That's going to be the interesting thing. I do apologise about the internet dropping out. If there are any more questions, feel free to shout. I'm not even sure if the chat's actually working. I might have to just close this down and relaunch it. But if not, yeah, okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Vanish, you're probably right, but the CV captains who concentrate on spotting will make a difference. Exactly, yeah. What about the percentage of players actually play properly by spotting? Very few. That's very true, yeah. Okay, I think I've caught with the chat. And on the assumption that there isn't like people don't have much more to add, I'll probably just start off rolling off with the thank yous and just say thank you to Citron, to Jamie Cook, to Stumpy West, R9DNG, to Samuel Mitchell, to Vaz Vegas, to Pixel Mug, to Melissa Smith, to Brandon ABC, to Alex Doompas, to HMS Dragon, good to see you. To Let Crescent, to Gaz Gaming as well, Shouting George, and Sniper Patch. And I think that's everything. We've gone for everything. We've had some nice open discussion. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know that these kind of streams go through the patch notes is a little bit odd, I guess you could say. But thank you for coming along, and if you do have any parting comments, then feel free to shout and I'll try and answer them. If not, I'm going to start the Colonel Bogey's March, and I wish you all the best for this rest of the week and the weekend, and hopefully see you in the new patch. Thank you, George. Thank you, Brandon. Have a good one, Pixel. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you, Vaz. Much obliged. Look forward to catching up with you sometime.